Okay guys, 22nd of April, and we're going to have a look at the FTSE 100 and the Euro US dollar. As always, we'll have a quick recap of the markets from last week in relation to our Sunday analysis, and then we'll move on to the markets for the trading week ahead in terms of day trading. Now, just before we get started on the market, I got asked last week to go a little bit more in depth into some of the trading zones. Yeah, I can absolutely do that. The only issue for me is that if I do it every week, delete them all, replot them all, it becomes very repetitive and very boring for people that are watching them. I try to, toe the line between putting the zones up that I'm going to be watching so that you guys, if you want to, can also watch them, and also explaining why I am putting them on. So a little bit of a fine balance. I am trying to, touch on both sides of it, but certainly, yeah, I can go more into why we're looking at certain zones. So from last week, we had key resistance level up here, 7293, 7328. The reaction came really in overnight trading. That's when it started. We had the very, very strong reaction. Unfortunately, I was in my bed when this happened. Hopefully some of you guys managed to capitalize on it. Very strong move down into where one of our key support levels, 7199, 7180, right here, where we started to get the bounce. We came up all the way, basically the whole of last week, strong bullish rally. Another little bit of rejection came in on the Thursday here, and then on the Friday again we have broken up into this gap area. Now for me personally, last week trading, I actually only traded on a couple of days. Really what I was looking at was, as the market started coming back up again, I wasn't really too keen to buy the market. And you can see, just means I missed out on the large move up. But for me, my analysis, it just wasn't lining up with the bullish movements on the market. We're coming up, or we're up now into very, very key resistance levels. Basically, this whole section right here is very key resistance. It's been tested multiple times as resistance, support, support, support. We've broken back down. We've confirmed it once as resistance, and now we're just starting to break back up once again. So for me, really for the FTSE to start turning more bullish, we need to start getting above these levels. And also for me, coming into this bullish run up last week, certainly when we started getting up into these levels, we're starting to test at these key areas. So it didn't make sense to me to continue looking for buys. And sometimes that happens when you're trading. It just ended up me sitting out and not really having many trading opportunities. Okay, so what I'm going to do quickly is I'm going to pause the video. We'll get rid of all these black lines from last week, and then I will start the video once again and we can have a look at potential levels for next week. Okay guys, so what I've done is I've cleaned up the chart a little bit. None of these zones have changed. So what I'm going to start doing is posting the actual zone levels into the description part of this video, which is just down below the video. Now, just quickly before we get started also, it's easy for me to touch on the fact that I didn't really have a lot of trading days last week. But when you're trading, when you're learning to trade, it's easy to sort of get swept up in the the belief that you should be trading every day. I only had 2 trading days yesterday. The Monday was really a pretty quiet day, a pretty slow trade also, and then only had 1 other trading day last week. That's all part of trading. You want to understand that and not think that you should be trading every single day multiple times, which what most people think traders do. Okay, so a couple of different things. First thing is, from this previous all-time highs, we had 1, 2, 3 small swings. If we create a trend line from those levels, what we can see is the market's pressed up, came back down and retested after the very strong Monday down day. Adding into that, so really this trend channel can come away at present. Adding into that, we're ignoring this day here because this is obviously a gap down over a weekend. Right here. So the market created the swing point once, twice, and now 3 times. So basically we've caught into the crook of both of these trend lines, and we've had a very strong bounce off of this level. So moving forward now, we want both of these excuse me, on our charts. And then really breaks of these levels would be giving us early warning signs that potentially the market is starting to turn more bearish. Because as I've mentioned, we've had a nice strong rally here, but because we're coming up into such key levels, at present, I'm not really looking at this market as turning overly bullish. I need more evidence from the FTSE. So there's a few pretty key levels. There's one we're actually testing at present. Let's get them all marked in. What we're looking at is really this previous section where we had multiple spikes up testing at the level, and also this swing here. What I'm looking at on this swing is, although it comes down, pops up and comes down, I'm looking at basically where the most reactions happen. And we can see the close, the open, the spike down, the close, the open, and then all these spikes up. It's basically giving me that clue. That's the upper band of that level. And then we're coming down really to take into account the smallest spike up here. So 7.3, we're now at 7.380 to 7.370. It's also lining up, surprisingly, with that gap right there. Now, potentially, we want to take into account this little spike up right here also. Yeah, so let's bring it up to incorporate it. 7.390. This whole section is very key resistance. It's lining up with the gap. It's lining up with previous key swings multiple times. Even if we start coming back, we can see this market testing over and over and over again at these levels. Now, if we're starting to get above there, so first of all, let's mark this in. Key resistance coming into next week. We're testing right up at those levels at present. Up above there, really, next key level is when we start getting toward 7.445, really all the way down to 7.390. So, previous swing right here, swing right here, and this whole section right here. Right here. Really, those are the two main areas I want to add in for this week. Key resistance, right here. Now, if we're starting to break up above this level, especially have such a strong run up like this, it's still worthwhile looking as potential support, but I'll be a little bit more cautious in terms of looking for the move all the way up to the next zone. Now, also coming into next week, trend lines. Really, this one is the one that's in place. It's unlikely we're going to come all the way back down and test this one next week. However, this one right here, if we are seeing the market pulling back into levels, so our 7.330 to 7.293 level, let's say, and it's testing also at the sloping support, yeah, it's adding a little confluence for potential bullish bounces. We've got that zone down below there at, let's just make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. 7.270, we're now at 7.280 to 7.270. Again, good level of potential support. Down below there, we've got this one right here from the previous swing, 7.260 to 7.240. And really, these two are pretty key next week. If we're starting to fail at this one, it's then giving us a sign that potentially this bullish run is coming to an end. Yeah, really good for starting to look for stronger sells coming in. If we start failing at this one, I would expect at least to see 7.200 to 7.180 being tested. So then we'd be failing at 1, 2, and 3 swings, and potentially we'd also be failing at this sloping support and resistance level. Now also, this one right here, 7.330 to 7.293, we've gone over it, it's good support. A couple of key swings here, previous tests from back in December. But also, if we're starting to fail there, I just want to be a little bit careful of the trend line, but looking for those sell positions also makes sense. Those are really the main things I'm looking at on this market now, moving forward. Main thing is, if we can see a break of this trend line, we're coming into very key resistance. If we are going to continue this bullish run, it's very likely going to come from 1 or 2 zones right here. Basically, the swings here, potentially the swing down below just here, and if we're starting to fail at these levels, then it's very likely the FTSE is once again turning more bearish, and I would then start to expect stronger movements on this market. Okay guys, that's everything for this market. Let's move on to Euro US dollar. Okay, so exact same thing on this one, guys. As I mentioned, I got asked about going over the zones a little bit more in depth last week. Yep, I'm going to definitely try and do it more often in the videos. As I mentioned, I'm just trying to, get the balance between it being very repetitive, going through each zone over and over and over again, and also giving you enough of what I'm looking at. So, you know, it makes sense and helps you guys learn. Okay, so coming into last week, where are we? Monday. We had level of resistance right here. And what we went over was, so first of all, let's make it a little bit bigger so you can see. Level of resistance right here. What we went over was how breaks above this level, we could then look for the moves up into 12404 to 12420. However, a little bit higher risk was if we started to break up above this level right here. So with the upper band being 12379, we could then start looking for the bounces up into this level. So it depends how you approached it. Breaks up above, nice bounces up into this level. Where do we find the key resistance coming in? This level right here. Market starts to come down, again rejecting at this level. What did we also go over? Potential moves back down to retest at our sloping support and resistance. Very strong move back down. Where did the support come in? As we're starting to retest at sloping support and resistance, one of our bounce levels. Nice strong bounce coming into the Friday. Okay, so for this one, what I'm going to do again is pause it, get rid of some of the little black lines, and we can go over the market for the week ahead. Okay guys, so with this market moving into next week, we've came back down now and we are retesting at sloping support. So the first thing is this whole zone down here remains a key support level moving forward. And really we're looking at the sloping support line also. We've already had a nice bounce. It's a pretty strong move down, but we are still potentially looking at the breakout, the pullback for the retest and the market holding. So it remains a good level to look for bullish bounces. What I would say is if we do start to bounce now, this level up here is becoming pretty key resistance. So the market as it's pressed up has held at this level. We've also had multiple spikes down trying to break through the level, confirming that it's a good area where buyers and sellers are basically fighting over the market. So if we see the press back up, yeah, really good level to look for potential resistance once again. If we're breaking up above there, once again, good to look for support and the bounces back into these previous highs, which again, strong resistance levels. What we can see is our zones, you know, we don't really need to adjust them too often. They do have to get adjusted, but you know, they can remain the same if they're picked out well, and the market tells you each week if they're picked out well. They can last for, you know, a good few weeks. This zone down here, what we could do really is split this into two zones now. Let's have a look. Right here, so we're moving that upper band to 12270. Right here. Key support at present. Down below there, next key support for me is really, so I just want to bring this down ever so slightly. Right about here. I just want to take into account really this whole holding section right here. So down to around about 12265. Yeah, at present, good level of support. Down below there, we're coming back into previous lows here, multiple tests, really all the way down to around about here. So 122, around 12250 to 12235. Again, good level of support. So what we can see is a spike down. It's just a little bit higher, so we'll bring it up to incorporate to around about 12250. Yeah, it's pretty good sitting there. Support and support at present. Now, coming into next week also, as we mentioned, we want to keep this on our radar. Just extending it down. Really, as long as we're testing on this level, it's worthwhile looking for the potential bullish bounces. Spikes down here and here. I'd say this is a little bit more of a minor level for me. 12220, 12225. So a little bit more minor right here. Key support, and then down below there, we're at the previous lows. Again, very key support. This one's a little bit more minor. If we're breaking down below any of these levels, it depends on where the sloping support is. If we're breaking down below here, I would be happy to look for potential sells, but I'd also be watching where the sloping support and resistance is sitting. This is very key support. If we're starting to break down below here, then really the market has tested multiple times. We're confirming a pretty strong failure, and we would then expect a retest of 12095 to 12060 down here, which we went over as key support. But really, if we're breaking down below those levels now, it's likely we would have seen a false break of this descending triangle we went over. You know, we've broken up once, twice. It would be 2 failures. I would then expect a much stronger move down over the longer term on Euro US dollar. Okay, so that's pretty much everything for this week, guys. At present, we are testing at key support, a little bit more minor, but also still worthwhile watching. Very key support down here. If we're starting to break down below also, really it would be if we start breaking down below this level right here, I'd be happy to look for the potential sells down into this zone, but really I'd be expecting a test of 12190 up above key resistance and key resistance on this market. If we're breaking up above this one, it's also worthwhile looking for those bullish bounces. I believe this is actually the level and this level that was asked last week about. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly go over it. Basically, for this one, it was the initial swing. We were then coming to the left, and I was just basically looking where's the market been holding. You can see it back here. You know, we're bouncing, we're holding at the level. As we try to break down, we hold at the level and then we collapse. Up above, this little swing, confirmed by the spikes up, testing into the same swing, the market holding at the level, and as we come to the left, we can see the market strong spikes down, holding at this level. Also the strong spike up into the level and the strong spike up into the level. It's just basically, I'm just looking for areas where buyers and sellers are fighting over the market in a relatively strong way. Okay guys, that's everything for this week. As always, I hope that was helpful. Hope you all have a good trading week next week. I'm James Orr, and thank you.